Now's the time to finally realize we the people must make some choices. If we want health care for all, now's the time to raise our voices. Till they hear us in the halls of government and behind each corporate door. That we're sick and tired of getting less and less while paying more and more. Put human need before corporate greed. Join with many doctors, nurses, and other concerned Americans who believe health care is a right, and without health care for all, there is no liberty and justice for all. Let them hear us. Medicare for all, because healthcare is a right. Medicare for all, and the U.S. saw the light that every woman, child, and man should have healthcare in this land. Now's the time to finally put it on the table. Contact your legislators and tell them to save Medicare as we know it and expand it into Medicare as we need it. Improved Medicare for all, because your interests are special too.
Boy, that is really terrific.
And I see we got the author right here.
Well, the song, you've updated it a little bit and changed things around a little bit, but the song goes back to, I don't know how many years now.
It went back to when I was on the road with Ann Feeney, which got me involved with the Medicare doctors. But when I came to play at the PNHP meeting, that was the first time that we had done anything major like that. So it was really cool. Thank you. It's now available on a free download. If people want to use the music for free, that's all they have to do is download it and use it. And you can, if you were at something and you wanted to have it played outdoors, but they wouldn't plug you in, you can get a Honda generator and plug it in and put it on a loop and play it all day long. People use it in parades and they just put 30 and the 60-second on one loop and they just play it throughout the parade. It's about the length of time it takes for a truck with a sound system in the back, or if it's just walking down some people put it on a DVD player or a video player, CD player, and put it in the back of a wagon. We have some people that use it in parades and they walk in the parade as a group with a wagon with the music on it. If you want to just download a free album, there are several and they're very progressive. There's one song called I'm Getting Frickin' Sick and Tired of Getting GOP'd, although I don't think I can say that because you all are a nonpartisan organization. The whole idea of this was to let it go out there. And so if you want to write down the link to where you can get the free downloads, and there's one that is about Medicare for all. It has all the different versions. There's a single payer version of the song. All you have to do is go there and download it for free, and you can use it however you want to. Wickline Family and Friends .bandcamp, like BANDCAMP.com. And that's where you can get the free download.
What I thought we'd do is play some of the video from previous Medicare for All marches that we did. And then we'll have Andre Stackhouse, who's the lead organizer for the one on July 24th, who's going to be our main speaker. So we'll show Andre some of what we did in the past. These are from, I think, 2011, 2012. This is Medicare for All card, right, Amy?
Yeah, right. And then the inflatable doctor. I don't think we have her anymore, though.
Count bleeds you dry. You see that one?
We're looking for it. We aren't able to find it, so we might have to recreate it.
Here's some stuff from one of our.
Medicare for all, and the U.S. saw the light. The best healthcare plan is a single payer plan. Now's the time to finally put it on the table.
This one, we went from the baseball stadium to Westlake Park, and that's Bob's singing in the background there.
There he is. Finally put it on the table.
My name's Joe Martin, one of the founders of the Pike Market Medical Clinic. And as we know, a lot of our social programs are being threatened by a contingent of our congressional representatives. And we're here today to say that we are going to fight to preserve and protect these programs that are so necessary for the elderly, the disabled, and the folks in our country who depend so much on these programs.
I'm going to jump around here.
We're going to win this battle together. We are going to win this battle together. It's you big rich guys think we're not, but the people of this country are in the majority, and your days are numbered.
And that
People have paid for Social Security all of their working lives. Social Security has not had one.
This has been very clear from 1964 right through current efforts to hijack the debt ceiling issue to achieve what they have not been able to achieve through normal legislation. 1967, many of us we for all, and we know how it can be paid for. It can be paid for by eliminating those huge tax breaks that the wealthy got. We can eliminate. Happy birthday, dear Medicare. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy
Well,
and many more.
wasn't that invigorating? Started here. We're lucky to have Andre Stackhouse, the lead organizer in the Seattle area for the march in downtown Seattle. That'll be on July 24th. Andre has a many-year history of being the progressive organizing in our state. He's worked with DSA, whole Washington, and the Green Party, and he was a Bernie delegate to the conventions in 2020. Take it away, Andre.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for having me tonight. I was lucky enough to be, I think, in the last meeting with Dr. John Guyman and was graciously received there. I have a copy of his book and some of the pamphlets that he was so kind to send me. So I really like what you guys are doing here at PNHP Washington. I love the vibes that I saw in those videos. I would be so thrilled if we were able to really replicate some of that energy on July 24th of this year. And that's what I'm here to talk about with you all tonight. For those of you who don't know, there are major marches for Medicare for All being planned on July 24th in cities across the country. And, I think after the last meeting, I might have mentioned this in the meeting, and then I followed up with a few phone calls over the next week, and PNHP Washington has come on as a partner. The marches are open to everyone. These are inclusive events for the public, but I'm really excited to discuss ways that PNHP can be a real partner in organizing this march and help us bring people out. I went ahead and dropped this slide deck in the chat. So if you click that link, you have access to it. You can bookmark it. And I'm sure there will be a million other ways to see these slides as well. But let me go ahead and present. Okay. So yes, as I've already indicated, I'm here to talk about the March for Medicare for All on July 24th and PNHP Washington as a partner. This hashtag M4M4All, I don't know who chose that, but it's been a sort of informal banner that the marches have been going under. So I really like to include it in some of my visuals. But so the first thing I want to ask of everybody is to be involved. And this would apply to you or anyone else, but please, please, please mark your calendar. This date is coming up really fast. As the organizer, I can tell you, I am counting the days. There is plenty to get done between now and July 24th, but yeah, we all got to show up. That's the main thing we got to do on that day. So I want to make sure that everyone marks their calendar. It's July 24th. It begins at 1 p.m. And the place that we're assembling is Westlake by the shopping center. And we are going from there to Seattle Center. So that is the working plan for the march. Obviously, all of these things are works in progress. There's lots to figure out still. And, we make these decisions very collaboratively. And we're really open to any feedback people have on any of these details. But for now, the working plan is July 24th, 1 p.m., Westlake to Seattle Center. We're planning on setting up tables and speakers at both the beginning and the end. So we can have some speakers pump up the crowd, talk about the issues, and also really organize. So I'll go ahead and click to this next page, because one of the things I'm really proud of with this, and this is just a small selection, but we have a really awesome coalition coming together. So this is mostly Washington. I threw on a few other healthcare organizations that I'm proud for us to have as part of the coalition. And David certainly helped us bring Backbone Campaign on. And of course, in that upper right-hand corner, PNHP Washington. By the way, I am super proud that PNHP Washington was the first PNHP chapter to come on as an official coalition partner for these marches. So we've gotten a couple more. A lot of these are local chapters that we might have a few in different cities. And we're really excited to maybe even have some of these conversations with national. Some of those are going on right now. So we have a really strong turnout so far for this coalition. It's growing. One of the things that folks like you can really help us do is you can help us continue to build this coalition. There is so many different people that need to be reached out to, so many organizations. I will tell you, I spend most of my day actually doing outreach for this march, and I still have people who wish they heard sooner, or didn't know that our meetings are open to everyone and that it's very easy to get involved. So it's one thing to plan a march and to have it open to everybody and to have your doors open to coalition building. It's another thing for that word to get out so that people know about it and know that they can join and get involved. So that's part of what I'm trying to do by talking here tonight. Just really trying to get word out about this. The march is coming up, but there's time as well. And there's still a lot of decisions to be made. There's still a lot of organizing to do. And I don't think it's too late at all for any organization to really sink their teeth into these marches, to start marches in new cities. Really, there's no limit to what we can do here. I think that it's really, there really is a moment here for these marches. Originally, the only city that this was being planned in was Washington, D.C. Within a week, LA and Seattle had come aboard, and now we have over 27 cities. So really, this is something that there's incredible demand for, and we're just doing our best to make this an effective, coordinated political action. So I threw on a bunch of ways to get involved on this last slide. This is more useful later. Obviously, you can't click on these links right now. So the main things I want to emphasize: Seattle meetings. If you want to get involved with planning the Seattle March, our team meets on Fridays from 6 to 8 p.m. And I will make sure you have all of these links, but this Google Calendar link also has in it the Zoom invite and other useful links like our agenda document. So you can just go ahead and get involved. This is in a tool called Trello, but this is where we do our project management. So you can see the sort of work that we're up to. I can just briefly show you. But yeah, we have proposed, to do, doing, block, done. So we basically just, we meet and we see what everyone's working on, and we try to make progress on things and keep track of everything. So you can take a look at that. That's all public. We're not hiding anything. You can just see the work and see if you want to sign up for anything. We're also in Slack, a tool that maybe some of you have heard of. I don't know if it's something that you're familiar with using, but it's a way that we chat and keep in touch with everyone. So you can see if you join the Slack, you'll be added to a channel called All Organizers. And then there's another one for Seattle only. This is not super important stuff. If you want to get more involved, I run sessions all the time to explain how these tools work. So there's plenty of time to figure out the details there. And then the last thing I want to emphasize, if you want to get involved national and you're thinking big, you want to make Medicare for All a mass movement, because it's time for it to really be a mass movement and for us to get what we're fighting for. The national marches have weekly meetings on Sundays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. There's the link for that as well. And you can just get in there and start reaching out to other organizers in other cities and in DC and really planning these marches as a whole rather than just Seattle. So that's really all the information I wanted to convey here tonight. It's not that much, but the more exciting thing for me really is that PNHP Washington is one of our coalition partners. And so I'd like to kind of open the floor to talk about ways that PNHP Washington would like to be involved. Because, based on what I've seen tonight in that video, you guys know how to make a great march. And I myself, even though I've been cutting my teeth in organizing for a few years now, and I've been to large marches and rallies and contributed, organizing a major march like this is actually new territory for me as well. And I know that there's so much that I can learn from the many activists in this room who have been involved in this stuff. So I'm just so excited to talk about it with you all. I'm going to just go ahead and quickly show you the website. This is a little bit rough. It's a little bit work in progress-y. Like everything else with the march, there's a lot of work to do. But you can see here, we've got a huge list of cities: DC, Seattle, we got Florida, New York. I mean, it's crazy how big this stuff is getting. We have this coalition tab where you can see a bunch of other coalition partners: PNHP Washington, Democratic Socialists of America, Portland, lots of organizations, and then links for volunteering, donating. Everything you need here is on the website. So that's m4m4all.org. And yeah, so I just threw that in the chat as well. And with that, unless you'd like me to show you anything else, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open the floor to hearing about what you guys think of this march and how we can all coordinate on this.
The march is starting at 1 o'clock, and you said there'll be tables and speakers at both ends of the march. So the one thing, so I'm sort of asking that, but I would like to comment on that, because most of us have been to a lot of marches and demonstrations in our lives. And one thing that I've recognized is having really long marches and really long rallies are just sort of counterproductive. And I'm not saying that's what you're planning. I'm just making a comment about that, so that in the planning, we can ensure that, it's not hours and hours and hours. I think the people who do the best in organizing demonstrations, if anybody's attended any, are the Palestinians. They get there, they have they say one thing, they have a theme. If you march where there are people, you come back and you conclude, and that's the end of it. That to me is the most effective. When they're like speaker after speaker, it just becomes really kind of redundant. So I would be interested in knowing what your comments are about that, and if y'all are guarding against that tendency.
Really appreciate the feedback there. And yeah, this is something we've discussed a little bit. It's we definitely don't want the beginning of the march to drag. So we said sort of assemble at 1 o'clock and then walk at 1:30. We intentionally also chose a pretty short route from Westlake to Seattle Center. And one of the things that we were thinking about there is we want the march as much as possible to be accessible to the, the disabled community, and to not, or just anyone who doesn't want to walk really far. So we want it to be a relatively short route, have some speakers at the end as well. But yeah, the intention is not for it to be a really long march. And then you're reminding me of one other thing, which is that I really loved seeing the video footage from the marches that you all organized, because with that thought about the disability community, we actually really want to kind of have ways for people who can't actually attend the march at all still be able to participate. So we're hoping that we're streaming it out, it's being shared on social media, and that people who can't be there can still join the march and feel like they're a part of it. So, so that's some of our thinking there. Definitely appreciate it. We don't want the march to drag or be overly long at any point.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Andre. What street are you talking about walking on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know exactly which streets, if we had that worked out yet, but I think it's relatively a straightforward path. It should pretty much be able to be done on one street. I just don't know what the name is right now. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the route is not fully worked out. The start, end, and schedule are a little bit more firm for us right now.
Two questions. Who was it that first sponsored this Medicare for All March? I'm just curious. And number two, obviously one of the most important things is having a big turnout. And I'm just wondering how we're going to try to get a big turnout to this Medicare for All March.
Yeah, so in terms of the question of where did these come from, it's a question that gets asked a lot, and it's honestly a little bit tricky to answer, because the reality is that the marches, the first march was being planned in Washington, D.C., and it was just a handful of activists who had known each other from, you know, organizing Bernie stuff, just loosely connected, who began to plan the DC march. And then it had spread to LA. And then I got in touch with this organization, or this group of people, through Laura Fielding, who some of you might know, but they were basically talking to her. And then she asked if I would be interested in leading the Seattle March. But the reality is there's not a strong central national organization or anything like that. Marches are basically being planned by local teams. And then those local teams are made up of activists like myself, who come from a bunch of different organizations. And then that coalition page, or that sort of partnership program, which doesn't mean that much, but anyone can be a partner, right? And if you want to join the coalition and show support, all you have to do is put your logo on the site. But most cases, the partners are coming from people who have relationships to those organizations. And so they bring on folks that they organize with from that organization as a coalition partner, and to help them actually organize the march and turn out with, you know, activists with experience. And so that's a huge part of what I'm proud of, is that the team is made up of, you know, people who really have done this stuff, who honestly know more about it than me. You know, Our Revolution, Sunrise, Black Panthers, PNHP. And then in terms of turnout, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's there's no silver bullets. We do want to, you know, bring on some big speakers who can probably bring some pretty big turnout. There are a lot of candidates right now, progressive candidates, who are running in elections. So city council candidates and that sort of thing. We've reached out to Nikita Oliver. We've reached out to Shama Sawant. We've reached out to Jason Call. There are, unfortunately, Pramila Jayapal has confirmed that she can't attend. Same with Senator Bob Hasagawa. So, you know, we're going to try to bring out some big names. And, you know, another thing is, yeah, I would love for us to bring out some, not just all activists and legislators, but some cultural figures, you know, entertainers, comedians, musicians. And then, you know, the other thing is, I will say that the march is a kind of decentralized thing of a lot of different people, but a lot of the people involved in this have very strong, they're very savvy with social media. They're making effective use of digital platforms to get word out about this. And I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing from a lot of the other cities who have gotten big speakers and have gotten, really large, famous people to talk about it on podcasts and stuff. So I think we're getting word out there. The fact that it's spread from like one city to 27, I think is a really positive sign. But we're going to just have to really get it out there.
I think something is key is to get the organizations that you saw in that first video in Seattle involved, because they have huge, numbers of members. I'm thinking of Puget Sound Advocates for Retirement Action. Robbie Stern was featured in the video a few times. If we could get him involved. The other thing is there's Healthcare as a Human Right Washington Coalition, and many of the coalition members were represented in the video I showed from way back. So I'm hoping, I'm on the steering committee of Healthcare as a Human Right, and I'm hoping that the steering committee can talk about it and take a look at it and get involved, because it would certainly be a natural for an action that bring a lot of publicity to Medicare for All, as well as the state-based thing. Anything's going to happen at the local level. David Loud, guy who was featured in the video, and are you a co-chair of Healthcare as a Human Right?
Of the steering committee, correct.
Would you be willing to set up a steering committee meeting just to look at this? Because I know some people are a little concerned that there's not transparency enough to see who's really behind this. Could it be somebody that we wouldn't want to partner with? But I think that Healthcare as a Human Right got involved. It can be shaped by the organizations within that coalition, because of the large number of progressives those organizations have contact with or members of throughout this area.
Yeah, we're starting it. We're going to talk about it. Yep.
In order to get people involved with this, or organizations, other organizations, how is there some link or like what to do to find out more? I just Googled it and looks like the route would mostly be on 4th Avenue to get from Westlake Center to Seattle Center. I mean, that's just like,
Common route.
then take a most of it's 0.7 miles from Westlake Center to Denny Way, and then you're practically there at that point. I just want to know, because like I have some contact and organization that I'm involved with that is Kadima, which I think would be, there's a lot of membership there that would be, or have gone on previous Medicare for All marches. But how would they know, or what to do, or where to go, and how to link up, and how to publicize it?
I think that what I'm starting to recognize here in some of these later meetings that I've been having is what we really need is like some sort of press release or something that has all of the information in one place, makes it really easy to share. A lot of this is stuff that like hasn't been fully worked out, right? So we haven't necessarily had like a route to put in a press release. But one thing I'll share in here, this is an outreach document that I've been using. It's kind of a template, and it's also very likely not that good. But it's something. So if you need just sort of something to help you reach out to somebody and have a lot of this stuff in one place, it's a good place to start, and I might be able to improve it soon. But really what we need is like, we need to, one, update our Mobilize link. So yeah, that's one thing I didn't show, but if you go to the website and you click on Seattle, it's going to give you a link to register. And that link isn't going to give you a lot of information, but we do want to encourage people to RSVP so that we can, like, for instance, email them updates as we get closer to the march and that kind of thing. So one link you can definitely share as well is this Mobilize link, which will help, which will get people to RSVP.
Not that far away, so maybe even like save the date, even if we don't have the exact detail of the route or whatever, but I think people need a heads up.
I think this is why David called me and asked me to join this tonight, but would a theme song help? Is there any money for commercials? Is there any way to get a 60-second spot or a 30-second spot on the radio in different cities? Is there any way that people could embed a 30 or 60-second song, whether it's a video or whether it's just audio? that would say Medicare for all, because healthcare is a right. Medicare for all, to have the U.S. saw the light that every woman, child, and man should have healthcare in this land. Now's the time to finally put it on the table. Would that help if it were free? I mean, I'm saying it's free. All you have to do is download it, embed it. You could put it on every letter you send out, and people could be entertained while they're reading your information, rather than just getting another email like we get 150 every day from people all over the country, and all they do is tell you something, but they never entertain you. And I'm not saying just do it for entertainment. There's a message there. And I'm not trying to be self-serving. I've been trying to do this for over 25 years now. And I've traveled all over the country singing those songs at rallies, at protests, for movie openings of there was a movie that Terry and Laurie, they both wrote, and they were two. One was called the Healthcare Movie, and the other was called Now is the Time, Healthcare for Everybody. And Now is the Time, they took one of my songs and they used it in their movie. So they used that, okay? And I gave it to them for free, okay? All I'm saying is, if you want to get the word out, is there any way, Dave, you can speak to this. The first time I was invited to perform at the Forum, there was probably maybe 150 people, 150 people in the audience in a big university classroom type of thing, a lecture hall. Right after that was over, I said, Dave, have you ever considered taking part of the song Medicare for All, making a commercial out of it, and putting it on the radio? They put it on AM 1090, and after a lot of discussion, some people didn't want to do it, some people did, and apparently somebody got up in the meeting and said, look, I want to do it. Here's my credit card. Would you just buy the commercials and see if it works? It put where it was, who was going to be there, and there's a donut in there that can be recorded and put anything in it that you want to say. That's not, doesn't have to be like what you just saw at the beginning. I'm just saying they did put it on the air. Dave, would you please tell them what happened the next year when you put it on the Tuesday before the Saturday of the meeting? They got about 8 to 10 plays a day on AM 1090. Remember AM 1090, everybody? Well, they put it on there. Hey, Dave, how many people did you have at the next meeting that after you played that? Would you tell them?
Well, we had 850.
You filled the place.
Yeah, we had Amy, what's her name?
Good, man.
Now she was the big draw.
Well, yeah, that because the music and the lyrics are just very inspiring and energizing, and people are motivated by it.
You know, thank you for saying that. Then why doesn't somebody that believes in Medicare for all take it for free and put it in their letters? Put it anywhere you can do it for free. I mean, we're talking about social media, but if you have the money, we've been playing it right after we got off the road with the Medicare doctors. We had a fundraiser and we put money together, and we ended up putting that song on every single progressive radio station in the country for over 4 months, with just people who said, I like it and I want it played. And we literally bought 8 to 10 spots on every progressive radio station in the country for those 3 or 4 months that we did that. And believe me, it made a difference. All I'm saying is, I don't normally do this, but it was nice enough for David to, and I don't know how much more time that I have to do this, but I really do. Want some music? Give me a call before I die. You know, that type of thing. I'm at this point, I'm at the point where I can't reach out any more than I've reached. My arms are gone. They're gone. Anyway, I'm just saying, it's there.
You've finally reached me. This is exactly what I've been needing to hear.
Well, praise the Lord.
Yeah, no, I need to get that into the social media team. I don't know that they know about that song, but once they hear
probably
it,
don't.
They're gonna get it out there. And I think that they're doing some really solid stuff. They're making video content and stuff, but like, it's all stuff that they can use with your song. And the other thing that I wanted to add is they are doing some fundraising. There's just some fundraising that needs to be done, because some cities do need to apply for permits. Some others, need to fly in a speaker or something. And the point is, we're doing fundraising, which means we have funds, which means that we can perhaps afford some commercials and that kind of thing. So I think it's totally worth looking into. I want to see what we can do between now and the March, because I think that we're definitely going to find at least one, but probably way more than that uses for your song.
Well, also, if you want to have somebody sing, if I still can, I would love to participate again, and do it live, and if I can. And all I'm saying is, this is what I've been trying to do for a long time, and I've done it a lot all over the country, but I'd love to do it in Seattle.
I think it's a great idea, and I will definitely play the song at the next Seattle meeting, bring it to the team. I don't imagine that it'll be anything other than unanimous approval. And I think we're going to make that happen. So if you want to perform, I think, I do always run these things past the team. I think it's already happening.
There's a 30-second, there's a 2 60 seconds. One refers to single payer, and one talks about every woman, child, and man should have health care in this land. That's the one you heard. There's another one that says the best healthcare plan is a single payer plan. I don't know if you want to get into single payer or just stick with getting everybody healthcare. But the other thing is there is a complete song that can be edited, and it's called Medicare for All. And all I'm just saying is I just wanted y'all to be aware of it. And David, thank you for inviting me to come tonight.
Thanks, Bob. I just read the whole HR in 1976, and there's some really clever little themes in there. And one is long-term care, first at the home, then in the community, then in the institution. Really charming paragraphs in that bill. But the reason I raised my hand is I was at that march where you started up in the park and you went down to it was a really big, beautiful Medicare for All march and all the white coats. And I forget who was representing at that time, but there was a whole busload of people who came from Yakima, and transportation was provided. So whoever organized that march and that Medicare for All birthday march, hook up with them, because they got people from Yakima, a busload of people to come. So I suppose just going to the website and registering would put you out there with other people, maybe link you to people in your neighborhood or whatever. If you found out a lot of people were in Yakima.
Some people have just put it at the end of a letter in a embed, and they put the 30-second Medicare for All. They left it on their every time they would send a message out, it was always on there, and things like that. And I'm not asking for anything. I'm not asking for a penny. All I'm saying is let's get Medicare for All passed any way we can.
I just also dropped my email and phone number in the chat because there's so many great suggestions, so many people saying you got to reach this person. I'm not going to remember all of them. I'm not going to hear all of them. So that's my contact information. I'm doing this basically all day between now and the march. It's the main thing I'm focusing on. I'm not even working a job right now. What I'm saying is my channels are open. You want to call me any time of day and say, I got this great idea for the march. I'm picking up. Yeah, I hope this is really just the beginning of our conversation about this. And I know I've talked about the Friday meetings, and everyone has too many meetings to be in. You don't have to be in the Friday meetings or anything. The important thing is that we have channels of communication. We have dialogue, because that's how the ideas are going to turn into stuff that happens on July 24th. So that's kind of the spirit I want to leave everybody with.
As you look at our images on this meeting, you'll notice that most of us have been around for a long time, that we weren't even young 25 years ago. We're all getting a lot older. So I'm wondering if you've thought at all about finding a way to get one of those metro access buses that could take people, even wheelchair people, and crawl along with the march, so that people could come and enjoy the speeches at each end, but wouldn't have to walk the whole mile, because some people either can't or won't do that. So I don't know what Metro would charge to do that, if that's exorbitant or what, but it's a thought. We, on the one hand, we really want to turn out the young folks, because they're the ones for whom Medicare for All would make a huge difference. The rest of us are on Medicare already. Just a thought to keep the old folks coming.
Yeah, and appreciate that as well. I think that has been mentioned by a couple of people as a good idea. Um, it's part of, our consideration for how we can help people who maybe have less mobility still participate in the marches. And one thing I'll add is that we have a really fantastic organizer involved with the marches named, a little difficult name to pronounce. I believe it's Hawaiian, but it's No Ueo Pakai or something like that. And they are one of the officers at the Washington Democrats Disability Caucus. And so they're more familiar with a lot of this territory than me and are helping to, think of these things ahead of time and also make them happen. So I'm really happy that they're participating in the march as a planner, because they are one of the people who will not be able to actually march the march. And so, they care about this issue just as much as the rest of us, and they've been really helpful in helping us think of ways to include that community.
So have you invited people that are running for office this year?
Yeah.
Carol, who's running for mayor, talks about single payer in every presentation he makes. And the other candidates are all very progressive, and many of them are healthcare champions.
We've invited a bunch. We've at least invited some. Nikita Oliver is one of them. But yeah, and I have spoken to Andrew Grant Houston as well, who's one of the mayoral candidates. The one that you mentioned who talks about single payer all the time, I'm a little ashamed to admit I actually don't know of, so I'll have to look into them, see if they're interested in coming. Because yeah, I mean, if there's a mayoral candidate who's making single payer like their main issue, then that sounds like really good march material. A lot of the marches have been getting some big names from the world of like celebrities or famous Twitter people or whatever. And one thing I'm proud of is that Seattle has so many wonderful community leaders and legislators who have focused on healthcare and stuff, that we're going with a little bit more of a local flavor, community leaders and activists and stuff, which I think will be powerful in different ways. But yeah, the fact that we have all these candidates running right now, I think is also really helpful for what we're doing.
I was just going to say, I think in the messaging, it should always be improve Medicare for all, because traditional Medicare, only covers 50% of your expenses. People are saying, okay, well, let's get Medicare Advantage because it covers all the, eye, ear, blah, blah, blah. But that's a big ripoff. So it should always be, clear that we're not talking about Medicare Advantage for everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a really wonderful point. I've seen that, National Improved Medicare for All moniker getting around a bit. So I'm glad that's being introduced. And then the other thing I really wanted to add, just because it helps put this into some broader context, is, I know that there have been marches done in the past, even the somewhat recent past, but I will say that since Bernie Sanders ran and kind of made this his big issue and really increased the awareness of Medicare for All in this country, I don't think that there have been that many huge speakers or huge marches on Medicare for All since then, at least none that I participated in and knew about. And so this is, in a way, sort of the first post-Bernie like major march for Medicare for All. And as much as I would love for us to get National Improved Medicare for All in the next year, I think that there's a pretty good chance that we will be marching again next year. And so, I'm really excited about everything we're doing this year. I think it's going to be a huge success. I think we're building our power, but we should also be thinking long term. And so, I definitely think that in a year, we're going to have midterms on the horizon. And we'll have a year to plan. I think that this is going to be a really awesome trial run for what could end up being the really, really consequential marches in a year, when we can really force this to be, an election issue and change Congress.
Pramila has endorsed Lorena Gonzáles for mayor. And I'm wondering if she might be a good speaker.
Certainly could be worth reaching out to. I have reached out to Lorena Gonzáles at least once, just on Medicare for All more generally. Didn't get a response from her office, but I didn't mention the march at that time. So it's never too early or too late to call your local elected officials.
Are we going to be having music? Will we be having the labor band?
I would like for us to have music. I don't know about the labor band specifically. We haven't like booked musical acts except kind of just Bob right now. But but yeah, we've definitely wanted to have musical acts. We've had people who are talking about setting up, audio and stuff for that. I thought that the people in the video were great. I know last summer there were trumpeters and stuff throughout the BLM marches who might come out for something like this. So I think there's lots of music that can be had at the event.
One of the things I was especially thinking of is among the young people. Bernie was very well received by the high school and college crowd. And maybe if we reached out now, we might have an opportunity to get maybe one of the high school bands or one of the college groups. I don't, whatever. I'm not too sure that I know the sports bands that might come along and do something. Or maybe even just some of them collectively pull themselves together. It might be worthwhile. One, if we get some of them, we might get that younger crowd of people interested. I would love to see some people from the Black community come together as well. So maybe some of the church organizations or the youth organizations in the Central District or wherever they're coming from at this point.
Yeah, I think that's all great ideas. We are definitely trying to reach out to the, Black and Indigenous communities. We got the Seattle, I think it was Seattle or possibly Tacoma Black Panthers to be one of our coalition partners. Nikita Oliver, is a wonderful leader, community leader, and hasn't made it to the meetings, but has expressed complete interest in being, highly involved with the marches. And I think we'll be able to turn out a lot of that community. Yeah, we can always, there's so much more we can always be doing. And that's one of the areas where one of the best ways you can help, honestly, is just spread word about this, right? I mean, at some level, like, it eventually needs to make it back to me or some, the other organizers, but like, that's the whole point of me having this meeting and giving my contact information. But, sometimes people are like, they're afraid to reach out, or they don't think that they're the person who's supposed to do it. And I'm saying, like, open the floodgates, like, let people know about these marches. And if it's appropriate, get them to me. But even if it's just making sure they're aware of it, right? Word of mouth spreads past them as well, right? So you tell some people and maybe they don't go to the march or they don't get involved in the organizing, but the people they tell might.
I'd like to just inject a note of concern. When David McClanahan first told me about this, I think it was just last week, I hadn't heard about it and he had just heard about it. I looked at the website and I saw an array of groups, in each of the cities concerned. It's impressive that there's 20 cities now. And I very much appreciate, Andre, bringing out the entire Medicare for All movement, looking to 2022 when, I'm afraid you're right, this is still going to be on top of our agenda, because I don't think it's going to happen in the direction of Medicare for All. Still might happen at the federal level, but I agree with you. I don't think Medicare for All is going to pass this year. And so looking toward bringing it all together in the Medicare for All movement, the thing that concerns me, here's what I just wanted to bring up, and I brought it up with you in an email as well, and you answered me, thank you. When I started checking around with the major national Medicare for All advocacy organizations, PNHP, David checked for on that one, PNHP National, Social Security Works, Labor Campaign for Single Payer, Healthcare Now, NAACP, Public Citizen, National Union of Healthcare Workers, the National Nurses Union, and so forth, National Nurses United. My point is that none of them, as of last week, were involved, had been invited. And if this started in DC, and a lot of those organizations are headquartered in DC, it just raised concerns among the people I talked to, and I must confess I share, as excited as the participants are at the point for the right reasons and for the good cause, that this very striking absence of the bulk of the Medicare for All movement. And I'm still trying to understand why that is.
Yeah,
and that includes PNHP.
I don't know that there's like a answer to that exactly, but one thing I'll say is, from the very beginning, these marches have been, if you went to the website, there has always been a big button that says join, get involved with the organizing, right? And that's not me saying that that's the same as doing outreach. It's not, but the point is that the organizers of these marches have always basically had their door completely open, and for the most part have just been begging people to join them and get involved. And I don't know all of the forms of outreach that were done. I will say that I have spoken to many of the early organizers who said, well, we did actually reach out to many of these organizations. I will say that, from my own personal ambitions in that front, I've spent a lot of time working with DSA National, making this case to people, talking to people in chapters across the country who have connections to National. In the case of National Nurses United, right, they're not endorsing large gatherings right now. And I don't know if that will change between now and the March. So I guess what I'm getting at is I think that, in this case, these marches came from, they began with grassroots activists who didn't necessarily have deep connections to those organizations. And I think that while they did outreach, for instance, I think a lot of these people, they think that sending a DM on Twitter is outreach, right? Because they use Twitter. They don't necessarily expect that, the person on the other end of that Twitter, at PNHP or whatever, they think it's going to get to the people who need to see it. And it doesn't necessarily, right? So I think that the invitation has always been there. I think that there's a very strong desire for it to happen and to have these organizations come on. But I also think it's not always as easy as it sounds. It's difficult to get these things to catch on at large organizations. So sometimes I think that it's not that people don't know. Like, I'm also in one-payer states, right? I spend a lot of time in there, and I've spoken to people connected to all sorts of healthcare organizations about the march, and I say, hey, I need help getting people involved with this, right? You're on the other side of the country. You're in a different healthcare coalition than me. Therefore, different people than me. Can you help, right? And I don't always have the ability to then follow up and say, well, did it get to PNHP over there, or that kind of thing, right? So I think that the other thing just as well is that the marches were not planned super ahead of time. I'm sure it seems sudden to some people who are hearing about it now or a week ago, but the truth is they really only started planning in earnest several weeks before that, right? And that was sort of like, hey guys, what do you think if we did a march, right? So the organization itself is trying to emerge, right? Like, when I showed up, I'll just put it into some amount of context, right? I'm in many ways a very new organizer, right? And I worked on the Bernie Sanders campaigns. I've worked on healthcare between 2016 and 2020. So I know my way around a little bit, right? But when I showed up to the first meeting, my distinct impression was, okay, in some rooms, I'm the junior organizer, right? And I have all the benefit of the people with more experience than me. And in other rooms, I'm the senior organizer. And in this case, I recognized I actually have more experience with this kind of thing than a lot of the people in this room. And I could have taken that moment to say, you know what? This isn't a professional, real political action. These aren't the people for it. I'm walking, right? But what I said was, of course I want to help, because whether or not I get involved, these marches are happening, right? So the question is, am I going to do everything I can to make them as big a success as they can be? Or am I going to say that, well, the fact that everything isn't as put together as I'd like it to be, it's not coming from the, the deep, Medicare advocacy institutions, right? I want this to be a big event that brings everybody out, right? And so all I can do is show up and do everything I can, and that's what I'm doing. But it's hard. It's really hard to like build a mass movement and bring everybody out. I will say, as somebody doing this for the very first time, it is one of the hardest things I've ever done.
So can I make a suggestion? Have you contacted indivisible groups? We have a number of them throughout the Seattle area. And they are all, as far as I know, for Medicare for All. Also, North Seattle Progressives, I can get in touch with them. And they're absolutely 100% behind Medicare for All. What about the various councils in Burien, Bothell, inviting them to come and participate in this? If they knew about it, they might be willing to send, put something in their newsletter about a march taking place on such and such and so and so. And if they have banners, or if, invite them to come and bring their colors, bring their banners, bring their messages, etc. And if they want to send a speaker, invite them to send a speaker.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think there has been some outreach done to Indivisible, but I can review that with the team and just make sure that we reach all of them.
Yeah, there's quite a few in the area. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Andre, I really want to say that I really appreciate your efforts and your enthusiasm. And I know this is a really difficult thing. And I want to go back to major organizations, national organizations that haven't stepped forward to participate in this. Well, I certainly don't know the absolute answer, but I do know a couple of things. Is that we cannot always depend on these national organizations to lead anything. A lot of them have their membership like Public Citizen. Probably many of us are members of Public Citizen. It's like these organizations decide what they're going to do, and then they get the support from like organizations, national organizations. And then somehow some people think that only if they're not in the leadership, then we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. Well, and I basically would say, if they're not participating in this, then they're not doing their job. It's not that you're not doing your job, or that we're not doing our job. And as a board member of PNHP Washington, we discussed in our last board meeting on Sunday the absence of our national organization. And as a result of that, I'm writing a letter to Susan Rogers, who's our president, because we want for them to give us some answers about why they haven't connected to this march, because it's frankly, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for organizations that are national not to participate in something that's being done at the grassroots for the things that they claim to support. If they're not there, I'm not so sure they support it. The other thing that and I'll say this is like my third point. One of the things we heard in a meeting last month, and again, I can't substantiate this, but it almost sounds like the Democratic Party has like given a signal, like we're not doing anything on this, so you shouldn't do anything on this. Well, that's unacceptable to us who care about this issue. I mean, to make it, a political issue where you're going to stand down because the people you entrust at the congressional level are not doing their damn job. That is not the reason we shouldn't do ours. And it's really concerning. So I want to posit that. You might know this and can't say this to us, but I can say this to us because that's what I really believe. is
Well,
going on, and it's unacceptable.
I would like to thank you for saying that, all of that. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I don't like to, I don't want to like get into it too much. It's not really the point. But one thing that I will say is, you know, the first time I kind of encountered this sort of thing and was seeing this disconnect between the grassroots and the national organizations and people that we often think of as the leadership on these issues. Uh, my first thought was, it would be one thing if you were leading the march, right? If the national orgs all came out, they said the marches for Medicare for All are happening and we're leading them, we would all show up for that, right? I mean, it's I understand that like professionals want professional actions done in a certain way and with protocol and all of that stuff, right? But frankly, it's yeah, I don't think it's my job to lead these marches. I'm doing it because I want it to be a success, right? But like, frankly, it should come from the national organizations to lead a national mass movement.
So we'll find out what our national organization is saying about this shortly, hopefully.
And that's why I'm so glad to have brought on PNHP, because that really is the right way to do it. Is the grassroots way is to bring on PNHP Washington and PNHP New York or whatever, and say that as the local chapters of PNHP, maybe national has a little bit more interest in listening to you, but they can come on or they can not. But the fact is, we're going to be out there.
Well, this meeting tonight was on the national calendar. The national office has a calendar for what's going on at the local chapters. I did communicate with our board president, Susan Rogers. She just wrote a sentence or one or two sentences saying that it wasn't clear who was behind this, and some people thought it was the force the vote for folks who tried to force the vote and attack Nancy Pelosi and get into trouble with the Democratic centrists, basically, that would delay what might possibly happen in Congress this year on Medicare for all, or at least more money going into Medicare from the drug negotiations. I don't know how true that is, but there's rumors out there, and that may be why people are shying away at this point. And I think there definitely has to be transparency about who's pushing it. But as I said to David Loud earlier today, no matter who is pushing it at some level, I think we can use it to our advantage and push our particular ideas about Medicare for all. And I don't think, you certainly don't sound like you're going to force us to stand on the corner getting petitions signed for whole Washington or something like that. It's not going to be like that. So I think we can make it what we want it to be.
I think that's absolutely the spirit in which I want all of our partners to feel included in the march. Is one of the things that I am most happy about with the march is that the moniker that we've gone with this whole time is March for Medicare for All. So much work has gone into that. Medicare for all, we say it all the time, right? It's not an accident. There's like many years of targeted messaging work has led to that slogan, right? But the idea of it is that we're supposed to all be for Medicare for all. And we, as activists, spend plenty of time, getting into the nitty-gritty details of strategy and policy and all of that, and it's great and it's important, because if you don't have people holding the line on policy and strategy, it gets washed away. But every once in a while, I think we can all get out there and like march for Medicare for all and just be like, yeah, you know what, we're all for this. I think it's incredibly good for the movement.
There was one other thing. You remember when was it a year ago or was it longer than that, David, when the doctors and all the people from Pill Hill came down and marched down in their white coats and all of their, hospital gear.
That was a year and a half ago.
Yeah. That was really impressive. There were 700 people they estimated in that crowd. The National Nurses United being uncomfortable is a little hard for me to believe, because if we all stretch out our hands, we can be that 6 feet apart from everybody. And if everybody wears masks, they can sign their masks with their NNU logo if they want to. That would be absolutely super. And to have them all be involved. And I just think that would be one way for them to get beyond that obstacle, and certainly identify themselves as a group that supports this. And the pink hats in Tacoma, we should invite them to the nurses from Tacoma, and they would be really willing to come. They're very active and wearing their pink berets, and they're really a strong group. And I think that it's a way for us to identify ourselves as group, identify what we stand for as a group, and that we unite with other groups that are like-minded around this one issue.
Well, I think this has been a pretty great discussion.
Hey, I just want to say, Dr. Betty Capehart, you got a real good rally right there. Don't back burner me, don't back burner us. We don't have to follow those leaders. That's a real good rally, real good, motive, heartfelt authority that we have is to not be put on the back burner. I just loved reading the legislation. I encourage everybody to do it.
I just wanted to say one thing. The talk tonight has inspired me with the idea that I will try to get my 20-something grandchildren to join.
Yeah.
That because I'm just really stuck on the fact that we need to recruit in the younger people who are all at 6s and 7s right now with the coronavirus interfering with finding their way, which is what the 20s are all about, is figuring out what am I going to become, where am I going to do it, and with whom am I going to do it. And that usually takes them until age 30 to get that all squared away. And then we add the pandemic on top of it. But I'll see if I can, I'll reach out to them.
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone again so much for having me tonight. I'm getting to know some of you a little bit better, which is great because, the world of healthcare activism it ain't so big here in Washington. It's a familiar cast of characters, and I just love seeing the work that everybody's doing and to support each other, feed off each other's energy to keep this fight going because yeah, it's been a long one. I think you all know that. I know that, for me, it's kind of like you're saying, I'm 30. I just turned 30 this year, and I'm looking at the rest of my life, and I'm just going, I really don't want that hanging over me. It would be great to just focus on the parts of my life that, are more enjoyable. I really, really am appreciative of all the work that has been done before me. Everything that I'm doing is only possible because of that. I don't like starting from scratch on anything. I hope it's not just, one of those attitudes of youth or whatever, but I really do think that we're going to get this. I think that I'm going to get it, and I think that it's an amazing thing. I don't think we can understate how big of a thing it actually is.
And if you don't do it and lead us, who will? So I think Bob would probably close this event by singing, don't stand in the hallways, don't block up the hall. Oh, you didn't. There was a different Bob that wrote that song. Never mind.
There you go.
Night.
Hey.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
hang it up.
Thank you.
David.
Thanks again for giving up most of your
Yeah, thank you.
time we spent earlier.
Thanks a lot, Andre.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
And
you.
Bob, thank you, Bob. Mad as hell,
Involved, yes.
still mad as hell.
Mad as hell doctors, yeah.
There we go.
How many years has it been? Oh my God.
Mad as hell doctors, it was back in 2000, was it 10 or 2013?
Yeah.
2009, wasn't it?
2009.
I don't know. I was with them from the beginning, kind of. So we did a lot of touring, that's for sure. They're a great group of people. They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, is there anything we can do to get some of those folks from Portland to come up? Or are they trying to have a march in Portland?
We hope.
I guess
I
Andra.
think there
right?
was one planned in Portland on his list that he gave us.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, Mike
And they're
Huntington.
from Eugene also.
Yeah,
Oh, Mike Huntington.
that would be
Or-
how to find. Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Good night, David.
Bye-bye.
And everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
David.
Good night, everybody.
Night.